Taming Lightning podcast is supported by the Pittsburgh Glass Center, a nonprofit public access glass studio and one of the top glass facilities of its kind in the U.S., with a knowledgeable and friendly staff and a safe, fun atmosphere. Our community is made up of artists, collectors, students, or just those fascinated by glass. Depending on your interest and schedule, there's a class for you, be it a 2-hour introductory workshop, 8-week classes, or 5-day summer intensives taught by artists from all over the world. Keep an eye out for more classes at Pittsburgh Glass Center as we work to provide a space for learning neon and plasma. Check us out on the web at www.pittsburghglasscenter.org or call our studio at 412-365-2145. So, before I jump into the intro and all that stuff, I'd like to take a moment to make a little announcement. Those of you that follow me on Instagram, Facebook, or subscribe to the blog will know that I have recently been awarded the first, and let me say that again, first Ron Desmond Memorial Award for Imagination in Glass, offered by Pittsburgh Glass Center in memory of their co-founder, Ron Desmond, and his legacy as an artist pushing the perception of glass as an artistic medium, where he fostered idea over technique and posed the question, is this work truly me? In short, this is a cash and studio match award for those who think outside the box, practice curiosity, and taking risks to create new and unique imaginative works in glass or incorporating glass. There were about 51 applicants for this award with people from all over the world, and was juried by a panel comprising of Kathleen McCaughey, Ron's wife, and other curators independent of PGC. Through this award, Pittsburgh Glass Center will be officially recognized as a sponsor for Taming Lightning, and over the course of this year-long residency, I'll be pushing myself to create new work while documenting as much of the process as I can, as well as efforts to develop PGC and providing a space for learning and making neon and plasma art. Other than that, I'd like to mention 2 support options for Taming Lightning: Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee. I'll give you guys a short version of what these things are. Patreon is a subscription-based system of $2 a month for supporting the podcast, with personalized updates, class and workshop video and audio, and hopefully more. Now, Buy Me a Coffee is more like a tip jar in the amount of a small cup of coffee, which is set as low as $3. Here you are free to leave a tip when you want and how you want, just to say, hey, I like what you're doing. That's what kind of like the purpose of this is. And this won't be as personalized, but you'll be able to access similar content as Patreon. Now, when I talk about the classwork and video stuff, I'm going to be honest. I don't normally put those stuff out for free. Why? Because when I take video from those classes, or I take this audio from these lectures, this is for students who have paid for the travel, paid for their stay, and paid for this class, and may even have to pay for materials or equipment costs during their class time. So in order to respect the time and money they put into it, I'll have to put a price on it. And it's simple, but there's no need to worry. The podcast will continue to be free, and these options are a direct means for assisting me with audio equipment upgrades, billing on hosting, software and services used in processing, and perhaps for future travel and professional content. You are by no means obligated to donate at all, but any support is appreciated. Welcome back, or welcome to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'm Percy Eccles II. I'm the creator and host of Taming Lightning, as well as an emerging neon tech at Pittsburgh Glass Center, where I'm researching and developing a space for exploring plasma and neon light. Taming Lightning is an educational blog and podcast about the art, science, and history of plasma and neon light, looking beyond its associations with novelty in sign making and to explore the potential of rare or noble gases by learning about those that use them. We'll be talking with artists, makers, and researchers, each guest offering a unique knowledge and experience. The intro is Boost by Joachim Karud. Joachim is a Swedish artist who loves to create chill and happy music, and does so for copyright-free use. Be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and/or by donation via Patreon. You can find him on Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Hello, Lightning Tamers. This is episode number 9. Thank you again for your patience, as there was a lot going on in May, especially with my trip to Venice, Italy, where I was attending the Glass Art Society conference in Murano. Now, while I wasn't able to get any on-site interviews, being in Venice and all that type of stuff, I was able to connect with many of the participants in the light, neon, and plasma exhibition called Vetro Illuminato. And many of the participants were our previous guests like Mundy Hepburn and Harriet Swartzrock. This exhibition was curated by Pat Collentine, who is from episode number 1, and Ed Kirshner, who will be in the future episodes for the podcast. This directly ties into our guest for today's podcast, Bernd Weinmayer. Now, unlike the previous episodes, I'll be reading from a transcript of our email conversation. This was all done to remove any language barriers between us, as well as providing a convenient and comfortable atmosphere for the interview. I was able to see Bernd's work in person during the exhibition, and while we did not get to meet, it was still awesome to see his work. It's been quite a pleasure being able to communicate and connect with him for the podcast. Now, as much as I've been following him, there's not a lot about him. Besides his website, he kind of keeps to himself, so I would consider him a hidden master in terms of someone with tremendous technical skills as a master scientific glassblower, but also someone who would take that and free themselves as an artist. We'll learn about who he is, his exploration in glass through plasma, his relationship with Ed Kirshner, and how he grows from his technical and artistic practice. Alright, Bernd, it's a pleasure to be able to interview you. We'll do this question by question. Alright, so the first question I ask my guests is, who are you and what do you do? My name is Bernd Weinmayer. I'm a German living in Austria, which is very close to the Bavarian border. Pretty close to our home is the only glass school in Austria, with about 400 students attending. The short distance and the relaxed atmosphere of the scientific workshop is where I started my flameworking career in 1988. After 4 years of scientific education and 2 more years in design school, I became self-employed as a flameworker in my little village called Maria Stein in 1994. The former teachers of my glass school and the other scientific workshops in our neighborhood supported me in my first few years, allowing me to survive as an unloaned flame worker. I'm not good at a lot of things, but by working in glass, I feel like I can do anything. Suddenly, my father died in 1997, so I promised him that I would take care of my mom. My older sister is living in Germany, and my younger brother was also away from home at this time. I told my mom I wanted to stay in our little village, but I had to build a flameworking shop to be successful in this job, and to be able to get complex orders from Swarovski and other bigger glass companies in our region. She agreed and loaned me money to live my dream. After spending 15 months building, my workshop was ready. After receiving a master level in scientific glassblowing in 1997, I was allowed to produce any medical glass work, while making a lot of creative stuff in my free time. Till now, my greatest talent is handling of proportions. It's pretty easy for me to look at a sculpture and make it in a smaller scale in glass. At first, I didn't like working with glass tubing, although now I make a lot of hollow stuff made on a lathe. By 2004, I made hundreds of individual bottle meltings or slump bottles, and at the auction and the gas conference in Seattle 2003, I sold my skeleton bottle piece to Ed Kirshner, the plasma expert from Oakland. This is the beginning of a new technique and the start of a great relationship with Ed. Ever since then, I've been addicted to plasma light. After 30 years in flameworking business, I'm able to make nice sculptures, especially in much greater scale. I'm still one-man company, earning money with micro-scientific stuff, but the most of my time I spend developing new plasma styles. I love sculpting in clear glass with smooth, clean design. The color should come from the reflection of daylight, external illumination, or artificial made with plasma. I feel like the luckiest man on earth, having a profession that brings new challenges every day and gives me the feeling of getting better all the time, which keeps me young in mind. I'm married to my loving wife Geeti, and a father to my 10-year-old son Maximilian and 7-year-old daughter Julie. Together with my dog Lino, we are spending much of our common time in the Tyrolean mountains. I live an unexciting life by producing exciting glass stuff. So your start in plasma began when you met Ed Kirshner. I only met him recently at the gas conference, and I'll be interviewing him soon. Could you tell me about your relationship with Ed Kirshner and what you learned from him? When I met Ed Kirshner in 2003, I never thought I would really stick with this technique. After the Glass Art Society conference, I drove down Highway Number 1 to San Francisco together with my girlfriend and now wife. Our first stop in our fat Lincoln rental car was Portland. We have heard there was a nice William Morris exhibition at the Contemporary Crafts Gallery there. I still have the invitational card of the event hanging next to my computer. William Morris is my absolute favorite, but surprise, surprise, a second artist was presented there at the same time. It was a plasma artist, Eric Franklin, with his embodied cognition. This blows me away. I promised my girlfriend Geeti that I have to contact Ed Kirshner again as soon as we were back home. Half a year later, Ed Kirshner visited my workshop during winter for 2 weeks. He showed me the basics of neon and plasma technique, helped me build my own manifold, to look for vacuum pumps, electrodes, transformers, etc. After this, Ed came 2 more times for a 2-week workshop. We had a trade deal. I give him some special lathe-blown glass shapes, and he shares his plasma knowledge with me. After a while, it was a collaboration on equal level. Now we are best friends, and our families are very close. It helped a lot that Ed studied art in Salzburg about 50 years ago. He loves our culture, drinking, and eating habits. Now, I'm not a physics professor like Ed is, but I've seen after a short time that glass shape is very important for the nice plasma effect. So the well-known plasma globe is one of the worst shapes for plasma light, especially neon gas, which loves sharp, pinched edges and corners. So Ed is a very important person in my life. He's the only man I can ask if there are questions for combinations with plasma and high-frequency electrical power, and believe me, there are tons of questions in this field. It's unbelievable. Neon technique is now more than 100 years old, but also nothing is known about plasma as well as the legal rules of using this technique in different countries. Now, I don't want to overlook this, but you have an amazing balance of technical and creative skill. In just plasma, you have a variety of great expressions in the medium. From human anatomy, animal skeletons, mixed media animal trophies, vessels, and your recent Pangea plasma lamp. What do you think allows you to keep growing creatively with such technical beginnings? And what would you say is quite important to help balance technical and creative growth? I learned basic glass technique at the Glass Technical College almost 30 years ago, but it was always important to me that I keep my personality and childlike wonder. It's pretty simple to do that. I refused joining the German army after college, and I never worked for anyone else. That means I was always independent and unaffected from other people. Everything I did it in my own way, especially when it comes to working hard to earn money. Money is a kind of energy which will help you afford your dreams. No less, no more. I felt rich early in my flame working career. I'm my own boss. My hobby is my profession, and I would do it the same way if I won the lotto and become a millionaire. And there's one special personality I have. I'm never satisfied with what I made in the past. I'm always looking for higher goals. Improving my skill comes by itself, because glassblowing is an issue of practice in combination with creativity. I was born as a creative person, and I see design potential almost everywhere, which is sometimes troublesome because I sometimes don't have the time to bring these designs to reality. It's all an issue of time management. I try all the time to simplify my life, though I'm absolutely not a public person. I never had a cell phone. I was never part of a social network, and I love to play in real life, but not in the virtual world. When there's a reason to celebrate, I prefer to do this with my family and a handful of personal friends. Many people tell me that you cannot become famous because you don't care about marketing. That's correct, but this gives me the feeling of being a newcomer even after 30 years of business. It keeps my motivation to go ahead and discover new limits. Of course, I know these are not the basic rules, but for me, it's perfect, and it keeps me hungry. Form seems to be quite important to the application of plasma and getting an interesting arc. What forms would you say are most suitable? Each noble gas has a preferred glass shape, and almost every form can be made. Because I often work with other artists, it would depend on the color illumination he or she would prefer. The most common and universal gas is neon, with a wide range of effects and different colors. The main color of neon is opal purple and orange, where the opal color is more present in large volumes, but in the sharp pinch glass areas, the orange glows much brighter and gives the sculpture an extra three-dimensional effect. Other gases like xenon or krypton have one very bright flashing line with interesting blue, green, and white fog illumination. Both these gases are perfect for sculptures with a strong light movement and animation, but in my work, I mostly prefer glowing effects which support a nice glass shape better than the super flashy effects that often produce a dimmer light. A nice example of the perfect glowing light with a multicolor effect is one of the most recent works I did called Inside, a 190 centimeter or 6 foot sculpture of the male vascular system, detailing the blood vessels and most vital organs, including the brain, heart, lungs, kidneys, and reproductive organs. Speaking of recent work, I had an opportunity to see your Pangea Lamp in person. How did you come up with the design? So the design of the Pangea lamps was born when my friend Gerhard Hochmann was playing with a special rip technique, which involved taking some discarded sheet glass and shaping it over a graphite globe with hand torches, and then putting them back together again. Ordinarily, we use the technique for our Pangea LED lamp series, but we made the decision to make a double wall version filled with neon and xenon gas. And surprise, surprise, the final result looks so much better than we had expected before. So, why do you make the shapes you do in plasma, and where do these ideas or interests come from? In the beginning of my career as a flame worker, I had fallen in love with all kinds of skeleton stuff and skulls, because these fragile shapes look so beautiful when made in glass. I improved it year by year, but the basic themes are still the same. I like fragile things which are powerful and sometimes dark at the same time, which is why you don't see me making a lot of funny or silly things. I do lots of work for artists. I often take on collaborations when the object fits my favorite shape or themes, as well as when I think that helps me discover new limits, which allows me to improve my skills. It is very important to me that I show all the work that comes from my own hands as a reference on my webpage, as it doesn't matter if it's a consignment piece or my own art. And what is your favorite part of the process? The most exciting part of a project is when a glass piece which consists of endless pieces is finally assembled and almost ready for pumping. If it is a masterpiece, I have an absolute high feeling at that stage. I compare it to a time when a songwriter has finished a song where it is sure that the song will be successful, but hasn't published it yet. During the filling process, this feeling comes to a peak, but after the piece is done, the next project is about to begin. Sometimes with a lot of difficulty, because each piece is unique, and it takes time to get a good design and perfect function. It is always an up and down. So I'm very lucky to have my wife, together with my 2 children, to help keep me grounded and balanced in what seems to be a continuous stream of projects. Alrighty, last question. What is the one thing you know now that you would tell someone at the beginning of working in plasma? And this could be something you tell a younger version of yourself. The youth, especially in Europe, are sometimes depressed because they feel that everything has been developed and all is done in our hyper-modern world. There are still areas and technologies which are forgotten or not highly developed. Plasma is a technique in this way. Try to keep your curiosity like a sponge. There are only 10 professionals in the world who really work in this technique, and most of them are open books. They teach their technology in workshops around the world. Ask them and build your own pumping manifold. It is not necessary to be a scientist to work with plasma, and during the pumping process, the results can be seen. So make notes and take pictures from each result, and after a very short time, you'll have a knowledge of endless effects, like your own personal cookbook, which helps you reproduce each effect. The outro is The Process by Lakey Inspired. Jordan, aka Lakey, is a Los Angeles-based artist with the goal of inspiring others to create by sharing positive music around the world. Thus, he works hard to produce music every week for copyright-free use. Be sure to support his music by giving credit when used, subscribing, and/or by donation via Patreon. You can find him on Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Thank you for listening to the Taming Lightning podcast. I'd like to thank Bernd Weinmayer for taking time away from his work and projects for the email interview, and for sharing with us a little bit about himself and his work. Also, I'd like to thank Pittsburgh Glass Center for supporting me as a place of research and inspiration, as well as encouraging me to pursue this project. And the Plasma Art Alliance, where having access to a well of knowledge, it connects me to some amazing people. Keep an eye out for more classes at Pittsburgh Glass Center as we work to provide a space for learning neon and plasma. Check it out on the web at www.pittsburghglasscenter.org or call our studio at 412-365-2145. If you'd like to support the podcast, simply go to percyeccles.com and look for the tab Taming Lightning, or by typing in taminglightning.net and click subscribe. Other options for support are such as donations through Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are provided on the website. Feel free to share, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.